Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a sci-fi action movie called Jumper. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in a small rural town in Michigan where David Rice, an average teenager, lives with his abusive father, Will. David's mother left him when he was 5, and ever since, the relationship between the father and son has not been good. For the teenager, school is an escape from his broken household. He does not have many friends, but has a secret crush on one of his classmates, Millie Harris. One day after school, he gifts her a snow globe with a miniature Eiffel Tower replica in it. Millie, who has a dream of traveling around the world, absolutely loves it. But their tender moment is interrupted by the school bully, Mark. He teases David for being a dork and throws the snow globe in the middle of the frozen Huron River. Determined to retrieve it, David walks towards the globe despite Millie's warning, but just as he picks it up, the ice under his feet unexpectedly breaks. Poor David falls into the frozen water, and the current drags him away from there. He tries to reach the surface, but is abruptly sucked out of the water and dropped in the middle of a nearby public library. Confused and shivering, David decides to ignore what just happened and go home. There, his father immediately begins yelling at him for being late from school, but the teenager is in no mood for an argument, so he rushes to his room without talking to his father. He then locks the room and cowers away in one corner. Soon enough, a furious Will begins pushing the door. Just when he's about to burst in, David disappears once more and shows up at the library again. Whatever is behind David's superpowers is as much of a friggin' dork as he is. At this moment, he finally begins to realize that he might have an abnormal ability of teleportation. He decides to test his theory by concentrating really hard. To his astonishment, he pops inside his room minutes after he had vanished earlier. Realizing that this is his best chance to escape his abusive father, David grabs his savings and runs away to start a new life. First, though, he stops by Millie's house to leave the snow globe so that she knows he's alive and well. That's not great evidence. Next, David moves to the city, rents a dingy room at a motel, and begins testing his powers. The first few times he ends up crashing against a tree at a local park, but eventually he gets the hang of it by carefully concentrating on pictures of the places he wants to go. His first visit is to the Empire State Building, where David has fond memories of his mother Mary. Weeks pass by and the teenager feels ready to take full advantage of his powers. By this time, David knows that he can only teleport to places that he can visualize, so he visits a bank and gets a glimpse of the vault while pretending to go to the bathroom. He then teleports inside the vault at night and steals bags full of money. The following morning, the bank discovers the robbery, and the police get involved in the case. Later, a mysterious man named Roland shows up at the establishment and says he will be investigating the case for the National Security Agency. He has experience with cases like this and knows of the existence of jumpers, people who can teleport from one place to another. In fact, he's sure that one of them did this. The scene then shifts to 8 years later, where David is living his best life. He has a luxurious penthouse apartment in New York filled with expensive objects. He is also a grown man now and has exceptional control over his powers. His walls are full of pictures of landmarks that allow him to easily teleport anywhere in the world. One evening, he teleports to London and enters a local pub. David has grown so comfortable that he uses his ability for trivial things. In the pub, he vanishes quickly to get near a beautiful girl who is sitting alone by the bar. His carelessness is noticed by another jumper, Griffin O'Connor, who is also in the pub, but David is completely oblivious to it and he casually leaves with the girl. Elsewhere, Roland has cornered a jumper in the tropical forests of Brazil. The young kid tries to vanish, only to get caught in a net of wires that keep electrocuting him and stopping him from teleporting again. It is then revealed that Roland is a paladin, a group of religious fanatics who historically hunt down jumpers. The paladins think that people with superpowers are abominations. Roland kills the boy with no hesitation, and seconds later, he gets a call about a new lead in the bank robbery case. Yes, 8 years later, the case has yet to go cold. The scene shifts back to New York, where David returns to his apartment. He surprisingly finds Roland there, but has no idea who he is. The teenager tries to kick him out, but Roland responds by hitting him with a special baton that shocks him with 1,000 volts of electricity. This hinders David from teleporting further than a few feet inside the apartment. A fight then ensues, and after a lot of struggle, David manages to teleport inside a hidden room in his wall. He then grabs a bag of cash from the room and vanishes from there, but the experienced paladin is not ready to give up, so he sends his goons to all of David's usual actual jump sites. He also finds an old picture of Millie in the cabinet, which gives him a cunning idea. In the meantime, David appears in his old room in Michigan. After an awkward meeting with his dad, he goes to Millie's house. There, her mother informs him that Millie works at the local bar down the road. The young man heads there, only to feel like a coward. As soon as he sees his childhood crush, David tries to leave without being noticed and bumps into a grown-up Mark. The latter immediately recognizes him and bombards him with questions. His outburst is overheard by Millie, who joins the two men seconds later. She reveals that she saw David when he arrived and was waiting for him to say something. This makes Mark jealous, and he tries to make a move on her, but David punches him first. A full-on brawl then ensues, which ends with both of them being teleported while no one is watching. They soon appear inside the bank vault that David had robbed years ago. He then threatens Mark before jumping away, leaving the latter in the vault as punishment. Afterward, David returns to the bar and finally has a chat with Millie. She reveals that she has dropped her dreams of traveling because she had to face the reality of having a job. On the other hand, David lies that he's a banker, hinting that he makes lots of money. He then invites her to come to Rome with him, which she happily accepts. Unbeknownst to them, Griffin has been following David's tracks and overhears their plan. Meanwhile, Mark has been captured by the police on suspicion of robbery. Soon enough, Roland arrives at the police station, pretending to be a CIA agent. He interrogates Mark and promises that he believes his crazy story. The latter then explains everything about David and the girl he has a crush on, Millie. Upon hearing this, Roland realizes that she is the same girl whose photo he found in David's cabinet. So, he asks his men to investigate her whereabouts. He soon comes to know that she has recently left for Rome, and thus sends his men after her. 10 hours later, David and Millie arrive in Rome and check in at a very luxurious hotel. They later venture outside and enjoy the beauty of the city. In the next scene, the two roam around the Colosseum, and David tries to access the lower level. This is when he unexpectedly bumps into Griffin. A shocked David tries to leave, but the guy suddenly teleports in front of him. He then reveals that there are jumpers, just like them, all over the world. Following this, Griffin scolds David for carelessly jumping around. He says that the newbie has gained the attention of the wrong people. Meanwhile, a group of paladins enter the Colosseum and start chasing the boys. David is immediately shocked with a baton and left motionless, but Griffin seems to have more experience with the enemy's tricks. He teleports away in seconds and quickly knocks them out one by one. When the danger momentarily subsides, he helps David regain his wits. Griffin then explains about the paladin organization who hunt jumpers like them before disappearing again. Suddenly, an employee from the Colosseum shows up and notices several unconscious bodies. She screams for help, prompting David to hastily dive into the jump scar left by Griffin's teleportation. He soon pops up in a secret hideout in the deserts of Egypt. Upon seeing him, Griffin becomes furious and reminds him that he left Millie alone. David acknowledges his mistake and rushes back to the Colosseum, but unfortunately, the police are already waiting outside and arrest them both. 8 hours later, the Italian authorities are still trying to interrogate David. They can't make a formal arrest until the magistrate from the US Embassy arrives. To David's surprise, when the magistrate finally shows up, it turns out to be his mother, Mary. Before he can make sense of what's happening, she frees him from his handcuffs and tells him to run away. She warns him that more paladins are on their way. A confused David tries to go after her, but a cop gets in his way. So, he teleports to the waiting room and tells Millie that he was simply let go after the thorough investigation. She doesn't believe it can be this easy, but David asks her to trust him and takes her to the airport. Once there, Millie demands an explanation, confused why they're running if things are supposedly fine, but David doesn't give her any answers and only says they can't be together anymore. Feeling betrayed, she gets on the plane and leaves for Michigan alone. Moments later, David shows up at Griffin's hideout and learns that he hunts down paladins to kill them. Griffin reveals that he's doing so because these evil men are after their kind. They are so evil that if they can't get to a jumper, they'll attack their loved ones. Upon hearing this, David is worried about his asshole dad, who's alone at home, but he knows that Millie is safe for now as she's on a long flight. In the next scene, David teleports to his old home, only to find his father dead on the floor. Turns out Roland had already paid him a visit. This devastates David, and he finally realizes that his carefree actions have cost him big time, but he has no time to mourn as he must catch Roland before Millie lands in the US. A vengeful David then teleports back to Griffin's hideout and tries to snatch his diary that contains detailed research on paladins, including the one that killed his father, but Griffin doesn't let him, explaining that Roland is very dangerous and he shouldn't be taken lightly. With no other options, David proposes that they should team up to defeat him. Initially, Griffin refuses, saying he prefers to work alone, but when the rookie keeps on insisting, he eventually agrees. Afterward, the two of them teleport to the Michigan airport, but it's too late. Millie has already landed and left. This sends David into a state of panic, and he immediately jumps to the bar she used to work in. He asks around for Millie, and a waitress reveals that a mysterious man has also been looking for her. David realizes that it must be Roland and immediately teleports to Millie's apartment. Thankfully, he finds her safe and tries to explain how he suddenly popped up in her apartment, but she is still angry from the Rome incident and doesn't want to see him at all. At this moment, Roland and his men arrive, so David quickly grabs Millie and takes her to Griffin's hideout. This makes the seasoned jumper furious because he knows the Paladins have a machine that allows them to open wormholes on the scar left by the jumps. Unfortunately, Roland and his men have come with the machine and do exactly as Griffin feared. As they are waiting for the wormhole to open, the boys hide in a secret cave. There, David accidentally discovers that Griffin's research includes his own mother, because Mary is a Paladin too. Just as he turns to confront his fellow jumper, Roland shows up and immediately captures David with his electrical wires. He proceeds to kill the boy, but Griffin manages to cut the wires with a flamethrower. He then slams onto Roland and pushes him back into the wormhole he came from. The two continue fighting at Millie's apartment in Michigan. In the meantime, a confused Millie cuts the wires to save David, but she makes him promise that he'll leave her alone after taking her home. She's taking all of this remarkably well. David accepts, but also confesses that she's been his only love since they were kids. As the two engage in a romantic conversation, Griffin suddenly appears with the Paladin's machine. However, Roland uses the jump scar to launch a hook that captures Millie. He then drags her back to the apartment right before the scar closes. In the aftermath of this incident, Griffin begins preparing a remote-controlled bomb to take it to the apartment. He plans to kill all the Paladins once and for all, not caring if Millie also dies in the process. Unwilling to lose his lover, David suddenly teleports with the bomb and drops it at the Coliseum. Griffin immediately follows him, and the two of them start fighting over the detonator. They teleport all over the world and eventually make it to a battlefield in Chechnya. Ignoring the war around them, Griffin retrieves the detonator, but at that moment, David jumps on him and pushes him against a pylon with a lot of current. This keeps the veteran jumper trapped for a while. Following his victory, David teleports back to Millie's apartment and finds her tied to the wall. He foolishly rushes in to rescue her, but Roland attacks him with an electric baton. The Paladin then ties him on top of Millie, using separate electric wires for his limbs. Roland thinks that the current coursing through the wires will be enough to keep David from escaping. At this critical moment, Millie apologizes for misjudging everything and confesses her love for David. This gives him the support he needs to take his powers to the next level. Suddenly, the whole room disappears from the building and is teleported to the middle of the Huron River. David feels dizzy underwater, so Millie swims to save him. She kisses him passionately, which is enough for David to charge up a spirit boner and teleport them to the old library. Roland manages to swim into the jump scar and pops up in the library too. But seconds later, David lunges at him and the two vanish from the spot. When the scene shifts, the two enemies are in a cave right in the middle of the Grand Canyon. David points out that he's a good person because he could have left Roland with sharks in the ocean. He then vanishes, leaving the Paladin behind in the remote cave. Many days later, David follows some clues about his mother and finally reunites with her in a snowy area. He demands answers about what's happening, to which Mary admits that she left him because she knew about his powers. She also explains that she does love David, but the only thing she can offer him is a head start. Upon hearing this, David realizes that his mother is with the enemy, so he departs from there. He then meets with Millie, and the two teleport to a warmer place. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.